Hey everybody, welcome to FabFit Friday. If you were with me last week, you know that my husband ran upstairs and saved my audio. So I think we have finally fixed the audio problem I've been intermittently having that some of you can't see. Well, you can see, but some of you can't hear what I'm saying. And I think now we're good. Hey Dee, welcome. Welcome from Colorado. Thank you for joining me. I'm sorry I'm late. Hi Susie from steamy Florida. Whew, it must be steamy down there. It's steamy up here in Connecticut too. I have my water. Hey Mary, how are you? I'm really excited about today. I had to put it off. Hey Lynn, welcome, 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 welcome. I'm really looking forward to today. I was really sad when I realized after I had this whole thing planned and then my Threads magazine class shoot came up and I had to cancel everything last week. So I'm really happy to be back. And today what we're going to do is we're going to work on the pattern for a V-neck bias top. Yay! How are you, Brigitte? Brigitte. I think I'm saying that right. I want to say Brigitte, but you don't have an A, so I'm going to go with Brigitte. Welcome, welcome. Hi. And I did get your email about getting back together in your pants, so I will respond back to you right after I get off the live stream. Hey, Mary, welcome, welcome, welcome. Mary, I have red on. Super excited about my red. All right, so the story behind this top is I taught a class for pattern review on Tuesday. Bridget. Bridget. All right, thank you, Bridget. So sorry. I am so bad with names. I try to make them like more exotic than they need to be sometimes. I'm so sorry. All right, so the story behind this top is I was teaching a class for pattern review on Tuesday called Bias 101, and it was supposed to be an introductory to bias sewing. So what I wanted to do, oh good, Lynn and Mary like my red. I'm kind of loving the red myself, and I'm going to tell you why I'm happy with this red, and why I don't like to wear bright colors. I'm going to explain to you what's making this red on me like this feel flattering versus wearing a red top that makes me feel huge. So I'm going to get into color in a minute. Oh, thank you, Bridget. I'm so sorry. Okay, so and Pat says, glad to see color. Looking forward to this week and upcoming new pattern. Yes, I'm really excited. Well, the whole idea for this sew along is that I want to show you how to work with a knit top pattern to make a bias pattern and dress. Once this pattern is finished, I may develop it into a bias pattern to add to my collection. We'll see. So I want to make this I want to make this like a DIY pattern sew along because I think it's pretty easy to do if you start with a sleeveless knit pattern. And if you want to try putting in a sleeve, you certainly can do that too. But I'm going to work with a sleeveless knit top pattern. This is the tee from my tee twin set that I adapted. So I basically copied the front and back of it, and then I adjusted it to fit me for bias. So I'm going to talk about all of that. Lynn says my red glasses tie in well too. I know that was my first, my first foray into color is when I switched my glasses from brown tortoiseshell to a color. So I'm getting there. All right, so let me just stand up and show you. This is what my top fits like. And what I want to show you here is, I think what's flattering for me is the fact that it fits my bust and then drapes softly under my bust. It's not really a chunky fit. And if you were to check out my Instagram, I posted a picture of this top sewn up on the straight of grain and then also on the bias. So I was able to show the difference in the class, what happens when you cut things out straight of grain and then also cut things out on the bias. All right, I'm going to say your name is Mary with an I. Hello from Finland. This is so exciting. It's 8 p.m. in Finland. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're starting the bias top sew along today, so you've come at a good time. Oh, Bridget thinks my top looks awesome. I'm very excited about it. Let me show you the pattern pieces. They're very simple. Okay. Also, we have to deal with me having the fan on a little bit because it's really warm here. So I don't have any makeup on and I have the fan on because I am boiling. So let me just switch my view here. Ooh, I think that's still a little too light. Make it a little bit there. I think that's better. All right. All right, let's see. Lynn is saying, love the bias fit. Your Instagram post really showed the differences. It really does make a difference. Linen can be soft and floaty, but it can also add volume to your silhouette if it's not cut on the bias, because it just hangs and it makes like a tent from your largest part, unless it's a more fitted or has some shaping. So this I'm very, very happy with. And let me show you. Now you'll notice here what I did. Let me start with the front first here. Okay, so you can see what I did was I traced the half, but I traced it on paper that was big enough to then fold the paper and cut it on the fold. So maybe it'd be easier for me just to show it to you like this first. Okay, so I measured across my full bust area to find out what the total front was. The total front was 24.5 inches, and the back was 23.5 inches, and that works for me because my front, so when I measured my full bust, I measured right around, and I'll just show you. So I measured right around my front like this, okay, right across my fullest bust, and I got 45 inches. I appear to be puffier today. I really did get 45 inches when I measured myself when I made this, and now I'm coming in at 45.5. I must be bloated. And the important thing is I wanted to have like an inch of ease in my pattern. So I measured my full bust, and then I also recognized that my front, and then I measured from side seam to side seam right across my front like this, and I got 24 inches. So that means my back was like 21.5 inches or 22 inches, and then my front was 24 inches. So you can see that the front was bigger than the back. So that's why I'm happy that my front pattern is bigger than my back. Oh, Vicky's a little late. She's making phone calls at lunchtime. Well, thank you for joining us. Different bras give me different measurements. That's true. And I will tell you, I'll show you, I always wear sports bras. So my bras are always this exact model sports bra because it's comfortable and I like it. So I wear sports bras all day long, every day, same one. So I just think I don't know, I've been eating a lot of pasta this week, so maybe I gained a little. Pat wants to know which linen I'm using. This is a 100% lightweight linen, and it's yarn dyed, and it's just a very lightweight linen. And it's very nice and soft and floaty. The cool thing is, like, look at how this really, this gets me every time. Like when I stand up, this looks like it's a fitted top, but watch this when I pick up my side seams. Look how much ease there is. So you can see it pulls up and it makes all this ease in the shirt. And that's why I think it really, you know, does a good job of fitting and flaring. And oh, and I do think I made a mistake. Let me just show you something right here. This side seam here, I don't know if you can see it, but there's like a little bubble right here. It's a little funky on this side seam. And I think what happened was when I sewed this together, you'll notice, let me just switch my view over here. Oh, wait, let me just answer questions before I switch here. So Bridget said it's different bras give you different measurements. That's 100% true. Mary says, my granddaughter is having HH in bras. She's having a reduction next month. Oh, I'm so happy for her that she'll feel so much better. I always laugh when people are like, oh, I got my boobs done and I got them big. And I'm like, why did you do that? But I guess everybody does what they like. I think where no one's ever happy with what they get. But a lot of times if your bust is so large, especially if it's large compared to your frame, that causes backaches and other things too. It's kind of yucky. I hope everything goes smoothly for your granddaughter, Mary. Lean says, hello, good evening. Hope you're enjoying your special weekend at Threads. Oh, I did enjoy my weekend with Threads, my whole week. It was a fabulous time. I spent Monday to Friday with Sarah McFarland from Threads and two very talented videographers to shoot a very detailed pants class. I am so excited. I cannot wait for it to come out. It will be out in probably October, so we can look for that. But I don't think I even imagined that we could cram as much stuff into a pants fitting class as we did. I worked with 3 models. One of them was my daughter, Anna. One was my sister. And then one was a woman that I had never met, Marjorie. And I spent the first day fitting Marjorie into jeans. And then then we went on from there. And I'm really excited with the way everything came out. So I'm very excited for you guys to, have an opportunity to do that class in October. And I'll talk more about that later. All right, so Vicky says, yep, no underwires for me either. I make my own with stretch lace band for ventilation. Yeah, I'm not an underwire fan myself. I think they're more comfortable. I always end up getting stabbed when I wear underwires. Mary says she's miserable, can't exercise. She's barely 5 feet tall. Oh, all right. Well, I'm sending prayers and good vibrations and also speedy recovery to your granddaughter, Mary. Susie says, I am happy with my tiny boobs. I'd be happy with your tiny boobs too. My daughter and I treated her to a spa weekend at Norwich Inn and Spa, which is a fancy spa, and you could stay over. And we stayed over one night, and we had a whole bunch of spa treatments, and you could walk around in your very luxury bathrobe. I had to wear my bra under my bathrobe because I just felt like I had to hold them up. So it's a lot. But, I think we should be happy with what we have if we can do it and whatever. But I do agree with you, it can ruin your golf swing. They do get in the way. I am a very serious, I spend a lot of time exercising and hiking, and it's always about keeping them, up against me. So... Oh, Lynn says, I surely hope there's no drama with the Threads article. Well, actually, I guess I can tell you guys, I feel like part of the drama that happened might have been related to them asking me to do that class, but we worked it out, and I think things are going to be fine now. And I guess I've never publicly thanked you all for all of your support during that whole disaster a few weeks ago. I really, really appreciate each and every one of you supporting me. I think I was so taken aback that, Ruth didn't feel I was being transparent and giving her credit and all this other stuff. So I'm hoping we have that set straight now, and I think everything will be fine. All right, so Tana says, just got here and we're talking about boobs today. they're a bother. Well, we are talking about them. I revealed that I'm wearing my sports bra, which I always wear, and because my bust measurement was a ½ inch bigger than when I designed this pattern for the top I'm wearing. And then I was explaining the reason why I'm attracted to bias for woven fabrics is because when I stand up and show you, the fabric hangs and then it kind of, you know, drapes softly under my bust, and it's not standing out like a tent. So we've got to talking about bust size and why this is flattering and all the ease and everything else. So anyway, so that's all the fun we're going to talk about. What I want to show you now is what I'm planning on doing to this pattern to make it into a V-neck top. And I'm going to apologize to you guys up front. I finished the neckline and armholes. Let me just show you up close. So you can see I did a bias strip of linen, and I just wrapped the edges and stitched it in the ditch. So I was doing that, and I ran out of time to trace my pattern. So you can see it makes a really nice finish. I was going to turn the edges, I was going to make it like a mini facing, but then I realized my straps would be too narrow and my bra would show. So I had to just wrap the edges and not make it any narrower. So that's how I had to finish it today. Boobs are bigger because you lifted at the gym today. How about your manicure? Oh, I got this to teach the class. And I might keep them because A, they're pretty, and B, I don't chew my nails when I have them on. So I might actually keep these. My dad is weirdly attracted to the fact that I got these, and he feels because I'm on video I should keep up with them. So I may actually keep up with these. And I did do pull-ups on a bar today, so maybe that is why I'm puffed up. Because that is true, Pat. I didn't think of that. All right, so we're all good with this top. The reason why I was started to apologize to you is I didn't have time to trace my pattern, so I have to do that first. But we're just going to trace half. It's going to be really quick because I might want to make more of these. I like this. Oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you was, in the process of fitting this top, I felt like the back was a little bit snug across my hip. So I just let the back side seam out. So, I mean, and then I serged it, so it's finished. But I ended up letting out the back about a ½ inch on each side. And because I had let the top hang for 2 days on my dress form sewn with its original seam, I think that's why my side seam got a little screwed up. So I'm going to try to fix that going forward. All right, let me just cut this paper. All right, so what we're going to do today is we are going to design the top. All right, let's just see here. Oh, good. Pass on team bias. Love making it. Well, I'm very excited that you love it. I'm beginning to love it too. And what I'm going to do here is, for now, is I'm just going to work with half here. And I'm not going to worry about having big enough paper to make a full-size front and back. Put this one over here for now. Okay, so when you're working on bias, you need to have a full front or pieces that extend as far as they need to go. You do not cut things on the fold when you are working on the bias because it's virtually impossible to cut out fold your fabric accurately on the bias. So you always want to make a full front. and a full back, left and right, unless it's got a seam or asymmetrical or something. But when you're designing, it's always easier just to design on a half pattern. So what I'm going to do here is I'm literally going to just trace myself the half, and then we're going to make changes to this pattern because I want to make a V-neck. And I want to also, in addition to making a V-neck, I also want to make a two-piece back. I have it in my head that the back is going to have an emptier waist seam, and I'm going to try cutting out the top of the dress and top on the bias. The bottom part and the top part's going to be on the straight of grain. So I'm using my sew tights because that way I can just clip them on in two places. If you guys haven't tried sew tights yet, I highly recommend. They're so easy. You just throw the metal part underneath, and then you can just put the plastic topper on top, and then notice this goes nowhere. Love my sew tights. All right, and then I'm just going to trace this. And for my straight edges, I'm just going to use my ruler. And maybe we'll go with, we're going to go with red. So I'm going to trace this in red. So if you guys were like paying attention when I was talking about how I fit this onto myself, I made sure the full bust was an inch bigger than me, because even though bias stretches, you do want to give yourself some ease. And you'll notice I added an inch on top of the regular seam allowance as well. And I think that's important because, as I mentioned, I had to let out my hip. All right, so I'm just going to trace my side seam here. And I'm making a note that I have a 1 inch extra allowance. So my total seam allowance on here is 1 3/8. The reason why you want to have a bigger seam allowance is because when you go to sew this, you want to stretch your seam as you sew because bias falls. So you need to hang your garment for 24 hours or 48 hours to let it stretch into its final shape. And then the seam has to stretch with it, so that's why I had extra seam allowance. All right, so now that I traced that, what I'm going to do is I am going to, get rid of my little sew tights. I'm going to move this out of the way. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my actual seams, because remember I added extra, and I want to make sure that I don't forget that I had extra. And what I'm going to do here is, in addition to marking this, so I just need a ruler, this ruler. So I'm just going to mark my inch extra that I added here. Like this. Okay, so this is my 1 inch safety seam allowance. And then I also have a 3/8 in there. So I'm just going to mark the top of it just so you can see how much seam allowance there actually is. All right, so see, that's all the seam allowance I had. Let me see something. Lynn says, stretch the seam as we sew. I don't quite understand that part. Okay, so literally, look at this cute little mini I made. when I was teaching the class. This is my little mini version. But basically, what happens when you sew bias is that when you hang it up, it lengthens and stretches. And if you don't stretch your seam when you sew, what happens is it sort of locks your side seams and they won't stretch. So something that's interesting, I just want to show you here. Oh, that's new to you as well, Lean. Okay, so some people recommend sewing with a slight zigzag, and the zigzag will let it fall. So if you want to use a zigzag and not stretch your fabric, you can do that too, but I'm team stretch it a little bit. So that's what I do. And I just want to show you here. Move this out of the way. Okay, so this is the exact copy of this is an exact copy of the shirt that I'm wearing. I just want to get it so you can see what's happening here. Just slide this over a little bit. Okay, so this top is the same top I'm wearing, and the interesting thing is this is rayon challis, and the cool thing about rayon challis is this top would have hung the exact same way as it's hanging now. Well, maybe not the exact same way, but it's soft and drapey whether you cut it on the straight of grain or the bias grain. But what I want to show you here is, see at the bottom, see this elastic right here? When I put my red top on this dress form to start letting it hang, the top of the elastic was where the hem was hitting, and after 24 hours this top overlapped the elastic by about between 1/4 and 1/2 inch. So it grew a maximum of 1/2 inch with this really lightweight, it's not weighted down, linen, 100% linen fabric. So the other thing that's interesting is, notice if I turn it around here and we look all the way around, it's pretty long. It's in places it's almost longer than the it's 1.5 inches. This elastic is 1.5 inches wide. So that rayon actually was stretched longer than this was after it grew for 24 hours. So when I put this on after just keeping it flat, it was already like overlapping more than this was after a day of hanging. And now that it's been hanging for a few days, it's almost grown to the bottom of the elastic. So I just find that very interesting that bias will stretch and it makes the silhouette skinny. But again, look at this. See how there's so much ease built into this? And that's what makes bias super comfy. So this is the inside out. It's really a black and white floral. I have my big seam allowances here. But one of my tips I wanted to tell you was, if you try your top on and you notice you need to let it out anywhere, let it out before you let it hang. Because that's how I think I screwed up my side seam and it got a little bubbly. Lean says the rayon is also cut on the bias. Yes, this is on the bias. This is bias and it's rayon. But what I want to show you is, hold on one second. I wish I could wear everything. I think you might remember this dress. I made this dress last summer. I'm going to put it on the dress form so you can see the drape. This is also rayon, but it's cut on the straight of grain. So I just want to show you the difference here. Let me get this one. It's good I have all these girls I can dress up here. So this all right, so what I want to show you is, notice this rayon is hanging almost, I mean, you really can't tell the difference between how this is hanging, oops, soft and drapey, and how this is hanging. How you can tell is if I do this, see there's no ease. See, I can't pull it. Whereas on this one, I can pull it. So you can tell by pulling it away to see if there's stretch. But you can see that, but if this fits, this is soft and drapey just like that. They're both rayon challis. Just move this, back these up here a little bit. There you go. Okay, let me just see what's happening. Will the length change on different shape dress form? I think the length will change only based on how much room the fabric needs to form around, because when I put my, I also put the bias top on this, my ditto form. Okay, and you can see she's got me for a bust here. So when I put this top on here, it fit like it fits me here, but the hem was shorter because it had to go up and around here. Well, it was shorter on this one versus on my French European, which has smaller bust. So, but it still was the same after I switched it back onto the French European dress form. Okay, so let me just see here. So Vicki, the length only changes based on what it needs to get over whatever it is that's underneath it. But if you leave it on there for a week, it might stretch more. So if you're putting on something bigger, it might stretch more. And then if you put it on something smaller, it'll reach longer. I guess that's my answer to that question. Lean is saying, can you make a smaller size if you cut on the bias? Okay, so yes and no. Yes, you can make a smaller size. If this were a woven non-stretch pattern, but I was cutting it on the bias, you probably would end up needing to take it in a little bit. But I'm going from a knit top pattern that usually requires 25% stretch. So the way I sized it was giving me 1 inch of ease around my widest part. And for me, it's my bust. So my bust is like 45, 46. My full hip is 44. So if my hip were bigger, I would have used my hip to make the width of the garment, because I can always take it in if I need to. And actually I ended up needing to let it out at my hip, even though my hip had a smaller measurement. So you do need a little bit of ease when you're working on the bias on a woven fabric. So I used 1 inch, and I'm not a small person. I'm a solid 14, 16 in ready to wear. So, you know, I'm sort of in the middle of the road compared to larger sizes and smaller sizes. So if I needed 1 inch, I would guess if you're a smaller size, maybe you can get away with a little bit less of 1 inch. And if you're, you know, significantly bigger than a size 14, 16, maybe give yourself a little bit more ease. And what I recommend doing is working on something like this to start with. So if you've never made a bias garment, start with something simple. You know, start with something that just has shoulder and side seams, because you can pair this with a cardi or a jacket or something for layering. So if you're not a sleeveless kind of person, but this, I think this will give a good, you know, a good garment to start with. Either this or a bias skirt would be a good way to start as well. So I hope that answers the question about, you know, making it smaller. All right, so this is my, let me just trace my back now. And then I'm going to show you my basic idea for what I'm going to do for the style of it. All right, so now I'm just going to trace my, I guess it's this way. Just going to trace my back, and I'm going to cut this paper so I don't have a giant extra piece here. Okay. All right, so let me just trace my back. Okay. So I always start with the center back seam, and then again I line that up, throw my metal pieces, just use my sew tights to connect them. Okay. Oh good, look, I cut my pattern paper, and I really want more paper there, of course. So let me just gonna stick a little more paper here in case I need it. I always do that. I end up with a big piece of paper and then I don't take my time, and basically I make it too small in my haste. All right, so let me just trace this really quick. Again, I'm marking my inch. Okay. I'm tracing this. I also added a 1/2 inch extra seam allowance on the shoulder, and that was just in case I needed to let it down. And it turned out I did not need to let it down, but I didn't know that and I wasn't sure, so I always give myself I always give myself extra when I'm, you know, working with something new around the edges here. All right, so let's see. All right, so let's look at what we have. We have a front and a back. And what I'm envisioning here is I am going to make a 2-piece back because I want to try cutting out the top of the back on the straight of grain. And that might involve me needing to make it wider. So to fit this, I'm going to add extra along my armhole. So if it needs to come out farther, I'll be able to do that. And I have the extra inch on the side seam to let it out. But what I'm going to adjust right here before I forget is, remember I had the inch here. Well, I let it out a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to extend this another 1/2 inch for now, to make up for that, for letting out the back. I did not let out the front, I just let out the back. And on the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and add an extra 1/2 inch here. And I'm going to blend it back like this, because basically this is what I did. I added like that much more to my back edge so it wasn't pulling across my butt in the back. Okay, so that's going to be my new inch seam allowance, is going to be here. So I'm just giving myself, I'm just going to mark my inch like that. All right, so now I've got my basic pattern here, and like I said, the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to create a 2-piece back. So I'm guessing about, because remember I do have a, well, there is no seam allowance because I finished the edge with a binding, so this went all the way up. But if I were to turn it down, I would need 3/8 there. So if I were to turn that down, so why don't we make the empire waist seam maybe 2 inches below that. So I'm going to have it be here. So basically I'm lining up my paper and the grid on my paper with the grid on my cutting mat. Oh, hold on. Bridget is asking if bust starts, if you can have bust hearts on the bias. The answer is yes, you can. And I will be investigating that after I perfect making a simple pullover that doesn't have a bust start. Because with the bust start, there may be some adjusting you have to take into consideration when you're positioning it, because remember, the fabric's falling. So I want to get a little bit more experience under my belt with how far things fall before I start working with a bust start, because I don't want it to end up being too low or adjusting it up and having it be too high. So I'm playing with some simple things first, and then I'm gonna play with the bust start, because the thing about the bust start is, because the fabric grows, you have to be careful where you put it in comparison to your apex. So I will be working with a bust start. I just want to practice with these simple shapes first. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want it right here. Whoops. That's where my seam is going to be. So I'm just going to cut that off. And remember, anywhere you cut, you need to add seam allowance. So now what's going to happen, this is going to be on the straight of grain, and this lower piece is going to be on the bias. And the reason why I'm trying this in the back is because when bias is hanging from you, having a stable edge like that to hang off of will help fit the back of the bodice. You know, if I have any issues with fabric puddling or hanging funny, you know, I'm going to be working off of this straight edge to hang the bodice and the back skirt when I work on the dress. So I just want to see about that. I will tell you something that I discovered early on when I was designing a dress back when I used to work at Manchester Sewing for a fashion show I was doing. I was working on a dress that had a seam here like this, and in the back, what was happening was, down the center back, I was getting a vertical fin like this. I called it a fin because the fabric buckled all the way down to almost all the way down to the hem as it hung from a straight horizontal seam up here. And what I realized was causing this fin was having too much ease. So I took in the top and I almost stretched. It's almost like I had to make this just like a 1/4 inch smaller than this edge, stretch it on, and then it hung nicely. So I want to be playing with that as well. I'm going to try it again 1-to-1, and I'm going to see if I need to fit this edge bias onto this straight of grain, and if this piece is going to need to be a little bit narrower so I don't get a fin. So we're going to try that. But basically, this is going to be my back, and I'm going to keep everything else the same in the back. I'm gonna add seam allowances here, so I'm not going to do it now. I'll work on it later. Hey, Dawn Tar. Welcome, welcome. Oh, Dawn, I am so sorry I did not respond to your email. Dawn sent me some top-down, center-out tips for working with bootstrap pattern that you can get to make a leg form, and it was very, very cool. It's just I've had a million things to do these past 2 weeks, and I keep meaning to answer you, so I'm thanking you, and I will also respond to your email a little bit later, hopefully today. Bridget says, thanks for answering my question. Oh, thank you for answering, and so much fun fashion joined. Welcome. Welcome, so much fashion. I'm talking about the pattern I'm working on to make a different bias top and dress. So I'm going to put here add seam allowance because I cut it, right? And I'm going to put it here, add seam allowance, so I don't forget. And then remember, this is going to be on the bias, so this grain line, I can use the grid on here. So that's going to be my grain line. Okay. So I'm going to put the back away for now because I'm not going to really change much else to that. But in the front, I want to have a V-neck. Now, here is the, oh, Dawn says no prob. Well, I do want you to know I appreciate you, though. I really appreciate you. And welcome, welcome. All right, so let me just show you again. Here is the beauty of this situation. I've made this bias top using this pattern, so I know where the neckline is going to hit me. And I'm pretty happy with this level. So I'm going to change it into a V-neck, and maybe I'll lower it maybe a ½ an inch. But I don't want my cleavage showing. So I'm glad I have this already sewn up in linen, which I'm going to use linen to make my final dress. So I now know I can adjust my scoop neck on the pattern to a V-neck, and I know that I like where it is. So that's kind of cool. So Vicky is asking, will the lower back have a center seam? I'm not sure yet. I might add a center back seam to the back of this dress. I might not. The top will not have a center back seam, I don't think. But it could. So here's another thing. I'm glad you asked that question, because if you have problems with like a high round back or something you need shaping for in your back, having a center back seam up near your neck is kind of convenient. So it's likely that someone might want to put, you know, a center back seam on this section of the pattern, because then they can, you know, we can do a high round back here and we can get it to fit without worrying about the whole back section. And then for the skirt itself, the only reason why I would do a center back seam, oh, excuse me, is if I wanted to add more flare than would allow for a one-piece back. So I'm going to think about that. I'm thinking about that. I might. We'll see. So thank you for asking me that. That gives me stuff to think about. All right, now let me go back over here again. All right, so what I want to do here is I want to design my V-neck. And for my V-neck, I'm going to use a different color so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just going to fold this up like this so it's not flapping around here. So let's use, I'll use pink. So the first thing I'm going to do to design my V-neck is I'm going to draw in, I did not need this extra, so I'm going to use this as well, actually, I'm just going to use that as the edge of my pattern. And the first thing I'm going to do is draw myself a straight line. And I am going to go down a ½ an inch here, so it's a little bit longer. So I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to connect this like this. Okay, and you can see that if I have a straight line, I mean, technically that's a V-neck, but it's a very severe V-neck, and I want it to be a little more shapely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm going to find the center of this line, which is 4 inches, about here, and then I'm going to measure out about a ½ an inch, and I'm going to draw myself a line like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my French curve and I'm going to connect this like this. So I'm basically making a curved edge to my V-neck like this. So you can see what I've done is I've opened it up a little bit. So this is nothing. This is going to be my V-neck shape like that. And I think that will be more flattering. I mean, I don't want it to be too low. So like I said, I think just extending it, maybe we'll extend it an inch. I'm going to make it a little bit deeper, just a little bit, like this. Let's just do this. So if this is ending here, oh, now it's getting messed up. Let me use a darker color to finally finish it here. All right, I think this is going to be a good shape. Okay, that's going to be my finished neckline. So this is nothing now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out. Well, I'm not going to cut it yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my back in. I'm just going to fold this up so it fits side to side like this. And I'm going to mark my actual stitching line now. Like this. So my stitching line is 3/8 of an inch from here. So there's my actual stitching line. Okay, so this is my stitching line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark it on here as well. So we had the 1/2 inch, and then we had 3/8 like this. So this is my stitching line. I'm going to fold it so I can see how it's going together, like this. So I'm basically going to line this up with the stitching line like this. And what I want to do is I want to make sure I have a nice transition front to back. So I literally just want to make sure that this is going to be a nice shape, and I can already see I want to change something. So see, we don't want this, the top of the V-neck to come in hot like that. So, and if I look at my, let's look at me again. You can see this is pretty far from my, you know, that's pretty far from the base of my neck. I have about 1.5 inches from my neck to where the inside of my seam is here. So I can move that in a little bit. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna move it in like 1/4 like this, because I want to have, oh, that's, oh, look, oh my goodness. What did I do? This is my armhole. So obviously this, I cut out, I got to turn this around. I just tried to fit my neckline into my armhole. Did anybody notice I was doing that? This is one of the benefits of working with Sharpie. I can turn it the right way. All right, so now this is showing us what we need to see. And you can see even more here that you can see what's happening here. Let me just get this all lined up. All right, so see how this is a very sharp curve right here from the front to the back. So I wanna make this a more, I'm just gonna dash in. I think I'm gonna extend this down a little bit like this. Oh, and actually I wanted to make it a little closer. So I'm gonna do this. So see, I need to have a smooth curve there. So what I'm trying to show you is, okay, I want this transition front to back to be nice and smooth. So I'm just going to use my French curve here and just have it be a little deeper like that. So that's going to be my final answer. So see how it's important to put your front and back necklines together to make sure you have a good shape. And I mean, I do want the back neckline to be up high. You know, I don't want like my whole upper back, like I want my back neckline to be pretty close to my back. And, you know, this is coming off at a 90-degree angle, which is good right here, right? And then just gonna have it do that. So if I cut that out now, and I don't need to add allowances, I can just cut it. You can, then it'll be easier for you to see. I don't want to cut that though. All right, let me just finish. Okay, so now I've gotten rid of then I'm gonna, well, what we need to do is we need to figure out what's going to happen with these shoulder pieces here. So now I'm just gonna put these right sides together. I want to make sure, well, I want to make sure these match. So after this is cut away, that's going to be the inside of my shoulder. So I've added that little width right there to my shoulder. Okay, so to redraw this, these are going to actually extend to here now. So this is going to be my stitching line. And then so my shoulder seam extends to here, and this extends to here. So that's my entire shoulder now, right here. That's all part of the pattern. So I added a little width to my shoulder seam. I want to make sure they match, so I'm going to just cut the edge of one of these off, just to make sure they're the same width. And again, I'm happy with my armhole, so I'm just going to cut that off. Okay, so I just want to make sure this and this match. Oops, I got to turn it like this though. All right, so those match. Okay, and then I have my V-neck, and my V-neck line, actually, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off, I know I don't need this anymore because I know it fits. I'm going to cut off this extra ½ an inch because I think it's making it look funky. So let me cut that off. I've already tested it, so I know it works on me. So this is going to be my final back shoulder. Okay, and this is going to be my final front here. Oops, my final front. And you notice I had to jog it in just a little bit there to make a nice transition front to back here. So you can see that that matches now, and that makes a nice shape for a V. And here's the thing, if I think this is still too closed up, I can always dig it out when I try it on. So let me just show you. I'm going to just put this, like if I line this up with my center front and my shoulder, my center front is right here. I think that will be a nice, I mean, it's kind of a closed V. Oops, I'm sorry. Kind of a, so it'll go down. Oops. Okay, so there's my center right here. So it's going to be kind of a closed V. Maybe I want it to be, I don't know, maybe I'm going to need to have to scoop that out a little bit more. That seems like that's a little close. So I may be playing with the shape of this again, but I want to make my first draft without making it too big. And what I'm gonna do is, the sad thing about this is now, I'm happy with this pattern to test for my top. And again, remember, I want to play with that back with the straight seam at the upper back, and then hang the bias off of it. I want to play with that, and you know, and also I want to see if I need to open that V-neck up a little bit. But here's the wrinkle in my sew along. I'm leaving Tuesday to go to New York City to spend some time with my good friend Katrina Walker for a day before I have to set up my booth on Thursday. for the ASG National Conference Vendor Hall, and then I'm teaching Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'm going to be gone next weekend. So there's no FabFit Friday next week. So we're going to have to skip a week. But here's the good news. If anybody wants to follow along with me, you can find a pattern. You know, if you have my T-twin set and you want to use that front and back to work with, that's wonderful. If anybody has my tank top two ways pattern, that's another good knit pattern you can work with as a starting point. Or if you have a knit pattern in your stash you want to work with to follow along with me, your homework for 2 weeks from today is going to be to measure your full bust, compare it to the full bust measurement of the pattern, make sure you have at least an inch of ease here, and then if your full hip is larger than your full bust, use that as your measurement. Whatever your largest measurement is from your bust to your hip is the measurement you should use to make the width of the pattern. So you take those measurements and then you compare on the graded nest. One thing I forgot to mention to you is on my T-twin set, I'm an extra large. I traced the 3 extra large to make it big enough to have the ease. So that's the difference. I'm working with a knit pattern, but I'm working with the shape. I'm not worrying about how much stretch the pattern called for. I was working with the measurement of the physical paper pattern, and I made it an inch bigger than my widest part. So again, if it had been my hip, I would have made it an inch bigger than my full hip. And then you're just going to sew you're just going to make your front and back, and then we're going to sew it together and see what happens. So you guys can work on that for the next 2 weeks while I'm at ASG next week. Oh, I will definitely be posting on Instagram during the week. I'm going to try to be really vigilant and post something every day. I'm really bad when I leave to go teach, but I'm going to really try to post pictures from my classes and stuff I do in New York before I get there on Wednesday. So I am going to try to keep in touch with you guys and post those kinds of things. I'm also doing a Fit Tip Tuesday and a subscriber Q&A. I'm going to upload both of those so you have videos to watch during the week when I'm gone. I'm not going to be able to get to a FabFit Friday, I don't think, to upload for you, so it's not live, but I will have Fit Tip Tuesday is going to be how to fit a prominent tummy, or how to adjust your pants pattern for a prominent tummy. And then Wednesday I'm doing subscriber Q&A. I'm just showing how to fit a skinny neck, because one of my subscribers asked me how to bring in her neckline on her tops because she has a more slender than average neck. So that's what I'm planning on doing this weekend and having it ready for you guys during the week. So there'll be some videos to watch. And then once I get back, here's the good news. I'm not going anywhere else for travel until the end of September. I will plan some Zoom classes that I'll self-host. And I'm working on some things for Fabric Mart and Master the Art of Sewing for the fall, but I will plan at least one Zoom class in August that I will self-host. If anyone's interested, I will let you know what that is when I finish my newsletter for what's happening in August. And then I will have plenty of time to do this sew-along. I'm anticipating working on this bias sew-along for FabFit Friday between now and the end of August. Because I'm missing next week, so we'll need some weeks to do some sewing and some different things. Plus, remember, I'm doing a dress and a top. So that's sort of the plan for the summer, but the good news is after next week, I won't be here. I won't be leaving, and so we won't be missing any of our fun during the week. I love traveling. I love it, but I also love it when I have big stretches of time to stay home and work in my studio and share things with you guys on my channel. So it's really a win-win-win no matter what I'm doing. So that's my schedule for now, and my plan for now. So I just want to thank you all for joining me. If you want to check Fabric Mart out and get yourself some lovely linen. I don't know if it's still on sale, but it was on sale for $12.99 a yard. I got all of these linens for $12.99 a yard. They were wonderful. And then in my head, see this and this? I'm almost thinking this linen and this linen together. I'm wondering about some sort of color blocking. Like I have these two hanging over my door together, and this is a chambray white and red cross-woven linen. This is solid red, so I might be playing with those two colors, but I'm gonna test my first shirt out of a rayon linen, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I got all of this, and this linen, even though it looks, I can see on the monitor, I don't know if you can tell, this is much more orange than the red I'm wearing, and I don't think it's a great color for me. So it's going to be the perfect fabric to practice in. So this linen is going to be my test for the top. So I'm going to work with this linen that has rayon in it for my first test top. But I'm not going to do anything without you. So what's going to happen is I will have my pattern completely prepared. I'll show you how to cut out and sew in 2 weeks from today. So we're going to cut out and sew 2 weeks from today. I'll have it all prepped for that. And then we'll see how it fits, and we'll make some design changes. Maybe the neckline needs to be deeper. We'll see what's happening in the back. Very excited. So that's going to be my plan for this. Oh, and Vicki, you sent me an email last night too. I promise I will look at it. I do have to run over to the printer before they close and pick up all of my patterns that I spent 3 hours folding yesterday. And I have to add my instructions and package them in my bags. So I have to run and do that. Then I will come back and answer everybody's emails, including yours, Vicki. And yeah, so that's my plan. So thank you guys so much for watching. This was such a fun FabFit Friday for me. I really appreciate everybody hanging out with me. And if you have any questions about working on the bias, just post them, because even though I'm not going to be here next week, I will be answering my questions, because I can't let questions go for a week because it takes too long to catch up. So I will be answering questions while I'm gone. So if something occurs to you, or you need help with something with this, post your questions. I'll help you. Or if you're in my J Stern Designs Fit Sew Embroider group, you can post questions in there. You can email me, whatever you'd like to do. But I really would love it if you want to follow along with me and sew a bias top, that you can get going. Oh, Bridget says mine's no hurry at all. I know, I read your email, Bridget, and I promise I'm going to get back to you, and we'll schedule a time to get back together. But anyway, I really appreciate each and every one of you. And, you know, just know, if I don't answer your email the first second you send it to me, it's because I'm busy on a deadline. That's the one hazard of being a one-woman band here. I have so many things going on. It's hard for me to keep up with everything. And I will admit to you that the threads class that I shot last week, it was one of those opportunities that came up, and then it needed to be done quick, and I had to cram it in, and I was happy to cram it in, but it kind of made me push other stuff. So I'm trying to catch everything up now and just get myself back on track. And of course I have to go to New York I have to go to New York next week. So in August, I will be back on a smooth schedule, and I will have everything up, organized, ready to go. Plus, I'll be working on my rebrand that I talked about earlier. I have to make some serious strides for that. So anyway, Vicky's gonna live vicariously through my post. I promise I will try to do posts and different things while I'm there to keep you in the know of what's happening at the National ASG conference. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in 2 weeks. But remember, there will be Fit Tip Tuesday, and there will be subscriber Q&A. It won't be live, but I will be sharing a subscriber question and answer that I'm going to shoot and upload. So you will get to see me twice next week. I just won't be there live with you. So, Oh, Tana says, I'm getting braver every day because of your lessons. Modifying patterns is so helpful. Well, thank you so much, and I'm so happy to hear you're getting brave. But remember, don't cry over paper. Paper you can tape back together if you make a mistake. So adjust fearlessly. You can do it. All right, I will see you guys very soon. I will keep track. I will keep you up to date on things going on next week. I will post on my Instagram and in my group on Facebook to keep you up to date on what's happening. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see you soon. Have a wonderful weekend. All right, bye.